I think I'm a bit like Brian in the context that this has embedded bits in it, and if they work, I will thank my son very kindly, and if they don't work, I'll be blaming him. Anyway, so I suppose if somebody had asked me, or at any point in my life, if I had met a genie that came out of a bottle and they said to me, you've got 3 wishes, I really only would have picked one of them. I would just have asked for happiness. And during my life, that's something that I would always wish on people. I wish that they would be happy. In my teaching in pharmacy, I have the pleasure of teaching in the 4th year to the senior officer students. And one of the areas I lecture in and work with 2 excellent colleagues in is in the area of complementary and alternative therapies and traditional medicine. And teaching this particular subject to students who are going out into the world of pharmaceutics as practicing pharmacists, I find that we like to emphasise the importance of health maintenance and disease prevention. And I suppose as a scientist and a teacher, I'm extremely conscious of the effects that balance can have on your health and your general well-being and on your happiness. And so today I've chosen as my title to fit under this overarching umbrella, Creating Balance and Finding Happiness, because I believe the two are inextricably linked. Now, if we can make this work. I've never had 2 screens before either, which is great. Okay, so what contributes to happiness? Well, Brian has said an awful lot, but I think that scientists in general will have a lot to say. Neuroscientists would say, there's a bit of chemical going on there, you know. You have neurochemicals that predispose you to a way of thinking and a way of acting. We'll have psychologists who will say it's how you behave, your attitude, your perception. If you were to ask my children when they were small what would make them happy, they would have been looking for chocolate, possibly not a Milky Way. I thought he was the Milky Way kid actually when he said that. But so they would maybe like to be fed, to be warm and to be loved. That would have satisfied the children, and possibly now also the dog, now that I think about it. When it comes to teenage years, you're looking for something more complex. You want the parents to back off. You need space. You need money and freedom to grow. And then when we progress to being adults, well, it gets more complex, doesn't it? Because you still want to be loved and you want to be fed and you want to be comfortable, but you have to go out and actually get all that stuff that when you're a kid, someone else is getting that for you. And that makes it a little bit more difficult. And I suppose for some people it is hard, and for others it's easier, and that depends on your circumstances and on your attitude, and I suppose to a degree on how you perceive the world around you. So, my lecture, The Balance of Happiness, and I couldn't get the Simpsons to attend, but I did manage to get Kermit and his world tour publicising his new movie. So what do I think, or what's the general feeling of happiness? I suppose many of us might agree that it's a delicate balance, and it's a balance between what you have and sometimes what you want, not necessarily what you need. And it's an inner joy, it's a great feeling. When you know you're feeling happy, it's a wonderful feeling. But you can seek it, you can maybe catch it. If you're lucky and you're mindful, you will actually find it in your daily life. But you can't be taught how to be happy, but maybe you can. Maybe you can. And you can't buy it. And I think a lot of people would know that money won't buy you happiness. Now, it helps with those other little bits that contribute to happiness, but you can't go out and buy it in a shop, even if you go shopping for a week. And so in this lecture, I'm thinking about balance and imbalance. And sometimes I think that you can wake up in a day and you can feel balanced, or you can feel imbalanced. And sometimes we carry exactly the same circumstances on the days we're not in balance as we do on the days we're in balance, but you can deal with it better. And I think that's part of this nature of balance. Now, I'm not getting onto the science yet. This is a little bit subjective, but I'd say a lot of you will agree with me that sometimes the weight of I have diet there, it could be the diet, but it could be nutrition, it could be, related to your food intake, the weight of work, finances, Anglo, whatever you want to put there in that particular category, illness or health, relationships, sometimes that can weigh heavily upon you. Sometimes you've had a row with somebody and you go out in the morning and, despite the fact that the sun is shining, that row is still in your head and you don't see the sun maybe. And sometimes that weight and I've put work there because everybody talks about work-life balance, but sometimes that weight can't let you enjoy the fun, family, leisure, and all of the other things that are very positive. And that's the day you're in balance. But you go to bed tonight and you wake up in the morning, and then suddenly you're carrying exactly the same load, but the sun is shining, you're feeling better for some reason, and suddenly you can manage it all, and you see those snippets of happiness as you go through the course of the day. So I personally travel this journey probably weekly. I go from balance to imbalance, happy to whatever, depending on the way the wind is blowing and the way everything is stacking up. And at the end of the week, if I've had a few moments of feeling really happy, I'm very grateful. So what do the scientists say? Well, there's lots of different ways of looking at happiness. You can look at the chemicals that actually influence our state of mind and our state of health. You can look at our genetic predisposition to happiness. You can look at the physical and the psychological inputs that can make us happy or sad, how we see things, how we don't see them. And that's what we're going to cover in this lecture. There are lots of happy chemicals. I'm happy to say you will recognise some of them. And for the chocolate eaters and the red wine eaters, I will give you evidence today. Both are good for health and both can make you happy. I think this is extremely important. I think we're always looking for that little line in the newspaper, oh God, there's a survey today, I can eat that Bourneville chocolate. But there are certain chemicals that are well known to have effects, and you may have heard of some of them. Our scientists in the audience, please, if there are neurochemists, forgive me, I am not a neuroscientist, he didn't do the lecture. But we have dopamine, endorphins, oxytocin, serotonin. And these chemicals really have been handed down through the primate kind of family. Some of them are very basic chemicals, and they're found in many of our related species, which is quite interesting. But if these chemicals aren't aligned, if they're not in balance, we can be in trouble. And maybe that's what's wrong the day you wake up and you're carrying the same weighing scales, but suddenly it's weighing you down one side or the other. So we've got serotonin. This is the confidence molecule. It makes you feel important. It is a really good one to have circulating in your body. Endorphins, they kill pain. These are the ones that sometimes you'll get people taking up jogging and running, and they get a great high from it. So they kind of almost become addicted to exercise because they're releasing all these endorphins, which make them feel great. As you can see, I unfortunately don't participate in too much exercise myself. But anyway, dopamine, this is a reward molecule. We've got GABA, which is an anti-anxiety molecule. Oxytocin, which is a bonding molecule, which tends to reaffirm trust. We have endocannabinoids. They cause bliss as well in runners, and that actually they are identified as being responsible for the runner's high. And then we've got hormones, and for everybody in the audience, you will have dealt with your hormones. All the women, I can empathise with we're all there. Guys, I'm not sure how it's going for you, but estrogen, progesterone, they're all part of the mix. And as you know, that can vary how balanced your life is over the course of a month or a year. So what happens when our chemicals are out of balance? Well, I can't compete with the last speaker, but I have to say, God bless him, my 16-year-old son has just done his ECDL, and he is responsible for these slides. Because if we have serotonin, as an example, and it's out of balance, then we are depressed. This is the bit that needed to work. And then if we have too much serotonin, well, then you can get a very complex syndrome known as serotonin complex. Now, this serotonin complex is very interesting. This usually arises maybe as a result of taking two medications that tend to affect serotonin in the human body. So you can have an antidepressant, for example, Prozac, which will work and are very, very good, very good medications, and should always be considered if you're feeling very down. We need to get up there somehow. When you get up there, you can put the pillars in place to hold you there, but you need to get there. So serotonin complex can be a very sudden onset of too much serotonin, and it can happen that you're taking your Prozac, but perhaps you're taking something as a supplement to help you give up smoking, or you're taking a cough suppressant, and all these medications can also influence the level of serotonin in your body, so you can have too much. I've looked at GABA as well, because we're going to encounter that one later. This is a very nice chemical in our body. Too little of it, though, causes panic and irritability. It's one that helps us relax. Too much of it, unfortunately, over-relaxed, bit sedated, slightly out of it. So obviously in the balance of those chemicals there's a midpoint where you want to be. And so we've got all of those chemicals, and what's the chances they're all in balance at the same time? But many of them have very positive effects, so that if they're at low levels in your body, you won't feel great. So if we can find ways of increasing our natural chemical balance, then we have a handle over possibly our own chemical composition. So now we also have genes. There's a lot on this slide. You needn't read it all. But what I really want to say here is, and I was afraid of all the real, the very scientific scientists who all knew a lot more than I know in the audience. So this is really to satisfy them. But in summary, let's consider genetics. Look at the glass in the top. Is it half empty or is it half full? Who sees that as half empty? Oh, we're full of optimists here. Okay. Depends on what's in it. If it's gin and tonic, you might consider it half empty, but you might consider it half full if it was something nasty, But so a very remarkable young scientist, Deneve, has reported that he has located a gene called the happiness gene. Now, there's a lot of work out there on happiness genes, but this one he's done a very substantial study on it. And the bottom line is, we'll go down to the last line, the results of this study suggest a strong link between happiness and a gene that is responsible for the production or the release of serotonin in the human body. And we saw serotonin earlier on, the confidence molecule. So if we have genes that influence how much of a chemical we have, that's a bit chilling, because then you might think, well, once that genetic information is set, can we change it? And if I'm set at a low level, can I have any control over that, and can I be happy? Can I be happy if I have very little serotonin? But there are ways we can actually take ownership of our health and our bodies and increase the level of these chemicals to help us. But on the other hand, if you feel an overriding sense that you're very down or you just can't get that handle, you need to go and get medical advice before you start taking that bit of ownership you can add to help you bring up your baseline. Okay, glass half empty or half full. So really this guy was the first study that established a direct link between an individual's happiness and a specific genetic condition. These results established that we each have a unique baseline level. Now, this is what the paper says, a unique baseline level of happiness, and explains why some people tend to be naturally happier than others. But I don't believe our happiness can be determined by one chemical. And I think science doesn't believe that, but this has been published in the Journal of Genetics. Long list of references at the back. How do we increase our happy chemicals? Well, I said to you that we have inherited many of these, and primates also have them. And there's a lot we can learn from looking at nature. So let's look at the apes. In primates, apes negotiate groomings. They actually get in clusters and they pick the lice out of each other. I also lecture on lice, I'd be more comfortable with that. In doing this social interaction, they're bonding with each other, and that increases the level of oxytocin that they produce in their bodies, and that makes them happier. It makes them more empowered. Oh, I don't know how that happened. They tend to dominate the members within their troops, and they think they can get away with it. So you'll get bully apes, but bully apes get a real kick because that actually releases their serotonin. Now let's see what happens with the next one. They invest time. This I think is wonderful. When you see, if you go to the zoo and you see the apes and they're scratching at the ground, they're trying to get in at things. So they invest time actually trying to get termites or insects or ants from under the soil. So that's a reward mechanism, and it releases dopamine in their bodies. And they also tend to hurt themselves, and scientists and veterinarians have proven this, and they associate that with the need or the desire to release endorphins and get that endorphin high. So they kind of beat themselves up, and this releases their chemicals and they're feeling better. And if apes can do it, well, we can do it too. But maybe we need to do slightly more modified. I didn't do that termite thing ever. I do remember looking for something in the garden that got lost down a hole, and that was enough of it, so I'll have to find another way. So really today, what I want to see is, can we increase our happiness? Can we take ownership of those chemicals? Can we do something? And we can take positive actions. But again, I want to emphasize, because what I think is really important is, if you're in a very low place, first thing you do is take medical advice. Then we can build on what we get in terms of assistance. But there are positive actions, and so we will look at this whole list here. So for example, let's increase our dopamine. I'm not going to have you dancing, but that probably will be really good. We're going to embrace a new goal. So you're feeling down, you don't feel that those chemicals are great, you're not in a great place, but you have power. So how about embracing a new goal? Take up a new hobby, join a club, start a night class, start jogging. Maybe I'll put that one to the end of the list. This will increase dopamine. You can believe in yourself, take up activities that boost your confidence. Hang out with friends who make you feel better about yourself. Do you ever wonder about that? You meet people and they drain you, and okay, you want to help them and all the rest, but honestly you leave and you're just exhausted. But surround yourself with people who make you feel good. That's really important as well. This will increase your confidence, increase your serotonin. Consciously build trust. This is a very good one for young people as well. Choose friends and social activities carefully. If you choose them carefully, then you will build up that grooming, bonding sensation. It will make you more trustful, less anxious. Very good advice. Make time to stretch and laugh. Dancing will probably be included in that. This will increase your endorphin and your GABA. Maybe you can do this through yoga, and we'll discuss that later. And then I threw this one in today when I found the reference. Eat some dark chocolate, drink some red wine. The main component, or resveratrol, which is a small organic compound, has antidepressant activities, and recent research shows that it is linked to the production of serotonin. So that is my gift for you for now. So what do we do? Well, I told you that I teach in this area, and I work with two wonderful colleagues in a module we give to the fourth year students. And we look at traditional medicine, complementary and alternative practices. And for our students, we're empowering them to go forth as healthcare professionals. They have all their scientific knowledge, but something like 80% of the world's population do not use traditional Western medicine. They use the medicines available to them, and they have developed wonderful cultures to assist in disease prevention and health maintenance. And one of the gifts that we have for our students, and they love this, is we have a compulsory module which is on yoga and meditation. This is to help them to return to their balance, but more that they will learn by experiencing this, that when it comes to dealing with patients in their professional lives, that they have alternatives and other practices that they can offer that can be equally valuable to actually just popping pills. So Astrid Sass, a wonderful German lady, joined our staff a few years ago. It didn't take me long to find out that she was big into complementary and alternative medicine. And then what a bonus to find out that Astrid was a qualified, registered and insured yoga teacher. And Astrid has, through the kindness of her heart, taken on this particular workshop with our students. Now, if the technology works, we will share this. Oh, thank God. Okay, now, so you imagine, you're a fourth year student and you come in to your workshop. You've had it, been a long week. Loads of classes, loads of, I think I should have sound here, but we probably won't be greedy. Lots of stress, deadlines, all the hassle that goes on in the background. Possibly you might have a part-time job as well. And for half an hour a week, the kids come in and they go into the studio. She takes them in small groups. They learn breathing. They do their yoga asanas. This is positions that this looks wonderful, Astrid. I would not like if I was on that video. There'd be a lot more sound, I can tell you. So the students learn to hold themselves. They learn the different stretching positions. They learn to breathe. They learn, their asanas and their nidras. Is that correct? Did I say something wrong? Nidras, yes. And their breath control. And then they begin to meditate. And the result of this is that the students are more relaxed. They experience a depth of relaxation you cannot get in a classroom learning about yoga on paper. And if you take a half an hour to stretch and to relax, then the chemicals in your body also respond. And what has been shown in a group of 60 different yoga practitioners that have been monitored over a 6-week cycle is that the levels of GABA, one of these small chemicals, increase significantly. And GABA brings on and promotes a state of relaxation and calmness. So evidence-based has shown that this type of activity will help people to regain some additional calmness, relaxation, and a certain sense of happiness perhaps. But just to see how the students actually perceive this, we then, or Astrid, carries out a survey afterwards to look at what the group really feel they have benefited from in this session. And although this isn't in like the journal of whatever, this is solid research carried out in situ with our own students. I was going to say specimens, they wouldn't like that, hope none of them are here. And so the feedback from the students is, this is very significant, that if we look at this is from a group of 41, they're devils for not filling out forms, I have to tell you. But out of this group, nearly, I think 58% perceived that their levels of happiness had increased, that period of relaxation and stepping out of their lives in the student hustle and bustle had increased their relaxation. And then a very significant number, nearly 80%, said that they were more peaceful. And I mean, that's actually a good achievement, embedded into a teaching curriculum. And the real strength of this, I think, is that not alone that they have gained from it personally, but their knowledge base is gained, so that if they get somebody coming in to consult with them and they're stressed or they're anxious, this can be one of the alternatives that we can recommend. And I think that is really progressing within our school, certainly. And I'm very grateful to everybody who has contributed and permitted this little adventure. And the students are back in balance. They're not weighed down by the books, they're not weighed down by the jobs. It doesn't last long, but they now know that there is a technique that they can use regularly to bring them back to this place. Okay, so we've dealt with the chemicals, and obviously there's an awful lot more to happiness and the science of happiness than just the chemicals. And I'm going to verge now. Not alone did I know nothing about neurochemistry, I now know nothing about psychology, but we're going to go into the mind, because that is a huge part to play in where we're at and how our happiness state, or how we perceive our state of happiness. And what I really want to know is, okay, we've talked about chemicals, and we can imagine that this gene and all the other stuff that's going on sets a baseline of happiness that's determined nearly by our chemical composition. But the question is, can we create a different balance? Can we change the baseline? Can we elevate ourselves? And personally, I believe we can, and scientifically there is very strong evidence in the literature to say that we can bring ourselves to a better place. So I owe a lot to my son. He's only 16, but that ECDL was mighty. He got these guys on the rocking chair, or the seesaw. When I was doing this lecture, I spoke to, this screen has just gone blank, so I'll just move over here. I took opinion from a lot of people. I talked to my students, the third years and the fourth years. I spoke to my colleagues. I sent emails out to the friends who I worked with, who are scientists working in different jurisdictions. And one of my friends came back to me, who's working in America, and asked me, had I heard about Larry Stein and the notion of the mood elevator? And she works in corporate culture in America. And they have bought into the message of Dr. Sen, who is basically an what is he? He's a behavioural business and organisational change specialist. He did a doctorate in business and organisational change in the 70s and runs a very successful initiative in corporate America where they try and elevate people's baseline. So Dr. Sen has created the concept of the mood elevator, and I loved it because I thought, we all span a range of moods. Now, maybe you don't. Some of you are looking very still there, as if this woman isn't talking sense. But certainly from Monday to Saturday, I will go through a range of different feelings. I probably adopt 3 different personas. And, you know, if I can be calm and comfortable at some point in the week, I'm really happy. Dr. Sen has proposed the mood elevator, where he has lined up here different kinds of personal attributes. And what he puts forward is that our better selves are the people that we become as we go up this mood elevator, embracing feelings such as being hopeful, appreciative, being creative, being wise, or being grateful. And as we go down the mood elevator, we become the lesser good part of ourselves properly, as we become impatient. Oh, actually, I've got a bit of action going on here. Where we become impatient, stressed, or angry. The default position here around the middle is where we're not happy and we're not sad, but maybe we're curious. And you know what? I think curious is a good balance point here. If I'm curious, I'm okay with that. Don't know how the rest of you feel about that. But I prefer to be hopeful. I definitely perform better if I feel a sense of gratitude in my life. If I'm worried, I'm really edgy. I get anxious. If I'm self-righteous, I'm just not nice. And when I'm depressed, and like many of you probably have been in certain periods of my life, usually during cataclysmic events, well, I'd prefer not to live in that zone of my mood elevator. What's interesting to note here is Dr. Sen has identified grateful as the top of this ladder. And then when I look at science in general and see what type of literature and research is being done, there's a very vast body of research being done on the idea of gratitude and well-being and the physical and mental benefits of appreciation. In other words, maybe instead of looking at what you haven't got, you're grateful about what you have, or if you're looking at what you haven't got, see the things that you don't want and be grateful that you haven't got them. Lots of work. And you can look at these, I think this is going up online somewhere, but we've got studies by Emmons and McCullough. They looked at 192 people, looking at getting people to record positive, neutral, or negative events in their lives, neutral events, and then to also look at things of which they were grateful. And the summation of that research was that across the study, the gratitude group evidenced a far higher sense of well-being. The second study, and I'm not going to try and pronounce that, looked at optimism and gratitude, and that was actually over 8 months, not 8 weeks. Sorry, I had a mistake there and I couldn't get to fix it. And across this study, gratitude and optimism gave a greater sense of well-being. And let's say well-being can be equated to some great degree with happiness. There's other studies, Wood et al., Fro et al., where gratitude was shown to enhance well-being, and counting your blessings enhanced people's well-being. And this is very important, I think. So, I can't get you to dance, but I would like you all to look at this survey here. And I'd like you to look and see which of these things applies to you. So this is a gratitude survey done over 285 people in one of these papers. And this was one of the questions, or series of questions they asked people. So, I have so much in life for which to be thankful. Do you think that? Or if I had a long list, everything that I feel grateful for, it would be a long list. Or if I had a list of everything I feel grateful for, it would be a long list. Do you feel that? When I look at the world, I don't see much for which to be grateful. Well, there's times when it looks like that. I'm grateful to a wide variety of people. Well, even if it's black, I'm still grateful to a wide variety of people. As I get older, I find myself more able to appreciate the people, events, and situations that are part of my life's journey. Maybe that's a feature of age. Large amounts of time can go by before I feel grateful to someone or something. Maybe someone is isolated, alone. Loneliness is desperate. It's like an eraser that can rub out happiness. Other people stop me from being happy. If you've ticked that last one, we need to have a talk after this lecture. So I ask you, pick a number there and see what you think. And at the end of this lecture, I want you to think back on this survey and see have you changed your position in any way. Now we're coming on to a dodgy part. I sound like Hugh Grant, dodgy. But I firmly believe, and science supports, that perspective puts a lot of things back into balance. Now look at all of those things piling up on the right, but perspective, no matter how heavy they may be, can help you carry the balance of the load or whatever way your life isn't in balance. And I'm going to tell you a story now it's not happy and skippy and dancy, but it refers back to the last lecture where we talked about the notion of a catastrophic event. And I'd like to introduce you to one of our pharmacy students, a young man called Jack Kavanagh. Many people in this room will be familiar with Jack. Many of the people in this room can take great credit for bringing Jack to the position he's in now. So Jack was one of our students. He was a rising freshman in 2012. Loved, still live, don't read that wrong, but loved windsurfing and was a windsurfing instructor up in Ishka, the Irish college on the west coast. And he just had a wonderful sporting life, super family, in a great place. And I have a little audio clip now of Jack, who made this. This is where technology could be a problem. If this fails, now we're in big trouble.
Oh no.
Oh dear.
It's okay.
What did I not do right?
There. Roll over.
Oh, I thought it was a click.
I remember sitting on the beach at the end of the start of the summer,
No, stay beside
totally by myself.
Stay over here.
It was one of those ideal scenes where the only footprints on the beach are your own, and the sun was setting, on the horizon shining over the water. And I was just smiling to myself, thinking about how happy I was with where I was and what I had achieved. Little did I know my life was about to be turned upside down in only a couple of weeks.
Okay. So Jack had an accident. He was in Portugal. Like many of us, I was down the coast about 10 miles the same week he was there. And he dived into the sea from the sand. But in Portugal, there were shifting sandbanks. So when he dived in, the sand had shifted. And Jack sustained a C5 fracture in his spine. And so it was awful. And there were lots of awful things happened to him. But eventually, and this is only 18 months later, Jack is back in college. He's back in pharmacy, and there's so many people here that I'm very grateful to. Myself and his tutor up the back worked with Jack. I'm a disability liaison officer, another hat. And Jack is back. And I wondered, would he talk to me? Because he is one of the most inspirational people you could meet. And he has a wonderful family. And despite everything, he would make you feel he's happy. And I wasn't sure if he was or not, but I'm very grateful that he spoke to me. Now, this little piece is a little longer, and unfortunately we did it in his house down in Front Square, and got his best house in town, down in Front Square, but there was a bit of cooking going on in the background. But if you would bear with me, my technological skills are not great, but I did do this piece myself. Now, just press that.
I think that everything in life, sort of, from the way I see it, does come down to your choices. And that's all about ownership and being honest with yourself. And you can take ownership of that first choice in the morning to get up and give it a go, despite how crap you're feeling. And say, yes, I'm going to beat it, or I can get through today, or I'm going to make that job my own, or I'm going to go out and I'm going to kick that penalty because that's what I need to do, or that's what I want to do. And if you take ownership of your decisions, that sort of gives you sort of it's gratifying for yourself, and like when you can sort of look back and say, like, all those added up, all those decisions and tough days added up to where I am now, you sort of get to the point where you're actually able to smile to yourself and say, okay, despite how rough I thought it was, like I got through it or whatever, and you can sort of smile to yourself at the end of it all and say, well, like, here I am, like, and I'm better off after that. And sort of, I don't think I'm really getting across what I want to say, but sort of that accumulation of trying to better yourself by making the right decision. Like, you're moving forward all the time, and at the end of the day, like, no one wants to be stagnant, so when you're moving forward, that sort of spurs you on, and if you can smile about stuff that you've done, you're in a better place than you started, and that's sort of what happiness is, I suppose.
So, the reason I showed you that was because it really ties in, as I said with the last lecture, that our balance is established, we think we have a handle on things, and then life comes in and turns it upside down. And many of us here will have different events that have happened. Jack is amazing, he's an inspiration. In his smile, you see a happiness. And I'm so pleased that he was able to give us that little piece, because I think that's where, perspective comes into play. And suddenly, when I meet Jack of a day, if I have anything bugging me or weighing me down, I'm telling you, when I'm finished talking to him, it's gone. And for me, that perspective is invaluable, because that's what it's all about. So we go back to our mood elevator. And when it comes to us, okay, maybe we're stuck down in the red stuff, but if we can bring perspective in, maybe that will help us raise ourselves up this ladder. I hope you like my little elevator here. So we're depressed. Maybe by, if everything else is in place, maybe we can do something to elevate that. Maybe we can just get up to worried, but not really, really down. And if we're really lucky, then maybe we can go over the midpoint. but we might have to be irritated first. And we can perhaps become appreciative. And wouldn't it be wonderful if we can become hopeful? And we mightn't get up that top, but certainly for me, I prefer the blue zone. And I have to say, had a cataclysmic event many years ago and spent a long time down in that red zone. And for me, the height that I could get was probably curious, but actually that was good. And that's why I'm quite comfortable there still. But lovely if you can get up there and be hopeful, and I think we can do this. And I don't want to leave you with a message that's sent that where you believe that your chemicals define you or your genes define you. We still have some power, we have some control. And maybe we just need to get our mind in there and to try and strengthen that in whatever way we can. But it needn't necessarily be something way out there. It can be the small things. And as Jack said, the cumulative effect of the small things, maybe that can make us happy. So just as a last exercise, and don't panic, I'm going now, we can increase our gratitude. How can you feel happier? Well, look here. This is good advice taken from the literature, and the scientists are right, always. Keep a diary about the things you're grateful for. Now, I can't see you doing that, but maybe in your head, or maybe in that little memo thing if you've got one of those smartphones. Here's a good one, though. Think about someone to whom you are grateful that you have in your life currently. Think about somebody who cares for you, who's there for you, who loves you. Even, as I said, if it's your dog is a very good companion in life, and there's a lot of signs to show that. Think about someone to whom you feel gratitude and maybe write them a note. And a big study was done in America asking people to do this. And not alone were they asked to write their note, they were asked to ring them and then read the note out to the people they had written about. And everybody who performed that survey said that they were so joyful, so happy after they had done that, because they had said thank you. That's a big word to say sometimes. It's the best word. Meditate on gratitude when you're doing your yoga. I should have got you all to try that. Practice saying thank you in a meaningful way. Write thank you notes. Like, I don't send texts to people if they ask me to dinner now. I'm not looking for invitations, but I am available. I don't send texts. I write a note and I send it with a stamp on it, and somebody gets a note in the post that isn't a bill. That actually is great too, the other side of it. So, work and life aren't separated. None of the stuff we've seen there is separated. It just goes round in a circle. It's all integrated, and we're on an integrated journey. But I think and believe as a scientist, and I believe scientific evidence supports, that we have a greater chance of happiness on this journey if we have a good balance of passionate and inspirational, I love that, work. I'm passionate about my work. I'm not sure I'm inspirational, but I love what I do. I feel very privileged. I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for my family. I'm grateful for my friends. I love chocolate. Self-love, a bit harder for some people. That's a hard one. We don't always love ourselves, but to be in balance, you need to love yourself as well. An inner awareness, good nutrition, not to be sneezed at. Fitness, generosity, service, and a whole lot of fun. And if you want to be happy, healthy, and wealthy, include these in your life. So I don't know, did you think I was going to give you a little pack or some, little pop of pills or something? But we really do have the keys ourselves. And remember, happiness, each day offers us a new opportunity to find happiness. Each day there are nuggets. We just have to try and see them. And my thank yous, extensive. Junior Sophistry students who sent me loads of little thoughts. Senior Sophistry who recorded. Professor Astrid Sass for her yoga and her enthusiasm of what she has brought to those students. Colleague Neil Frankish for filming. Fionnuala Walsh from Eli Lilly who sent us the mood elevator. My son Robbie Kelleher for special effects. And a most special thank you to Jack Kavanagh for his inspiration. And any of you that want to read more about Jack, there is a web link to him. And there's the references, all on they'll all be on.
Helen, thank you so much. That was absolutely a wonderful presentation and absolutely huge food for thought.